All right, guys, top 30 modern classics for men. These are modern fragrances for the guys since the year 2000. And these are the fragrances that defined modern perfumery for the guys. So I've ranked a list of 30 fragrances. Some are flankers of what the most prominent fragrance is from the collection, but it's a list of 30 that I consider some of the most popular, most industry influence, most cultural impact, and lasting power, meaning how long they've been around. Not longevity as in how the fragrance wears, but longevity as in how long, lasting power, how long have they been around. So we're starting from the year 2000, but a lot of the fragrances are from around 2005, 6, and so on. But I've got 30 fragrances for you guys. And if you're new to the world of perfumery and you're a guy, you want to find out what you should dig into, this is the video for you. Or you just want to, watch what I consider fragrances for the guys that have had lasting impact, industry influence, cultural impact, and longevity, and things like that. So before I get started with the video, the list, let me know what you consider some of the, modern classics for the guys, fragrances that define modern perfumery. Do add a comment below. And let's get started with the list then. We're going to start with number 30. And this is a flanker to a long-standing fragrance, but I'm adding it to the list as a flanker ranked here because the original launched in the mid-90s. But I feel like this is a pretty lasting fragrance, but it is ranked at the bottom. We're talking about Armani's Acqua di Gio Profumo, which I felt like was super, super popular in the early 2010s on through the end of 2010s. They've discontinued it, so the new version is the Parfum, but definitely one that I think created a lot of buzz when it launched, and I felt like how watered down the original Acqua di Gio was, and the fact that they launched this version. Hey, my cap is a little different color. Is it? Yeah, it is a different cap. I feel like it needs to be mentioned. And if you can find the Profumo version, I highly recommend you find it, because I wore the original around 97. It was a bottle of fragrance that I got as a gift for a birthday present. And it has gotten neutered. It's so light. And this version, the Profumo, is so super awesome. It's taking the original's marine aquatic touches, and it adds that kind of zest to it, that crispness to it, but it also darkens it. It adds, like patchouli and incense to the mix. It's a super awesome scent. So the Profumo for me, I feel like is definitely something you should have in your collection if you're the type of guy that likes men's designer fragrances. But if you can't find it, I think the Parfum should be fine. I don't know why they did that, but they did discontinue the Profumo. But I do see it still selling. And again, if you can't find the Profumo, the Parfum should do the trick. It's not as good as the original, but it comes pretty close. It's still pretty crisp. It's a marine style of fragrance that's been darkened. So it's also, like a flanker of the most famous aquatic marine fragrance line. I feel like the original is still very popular, probably one of the most popular men's fragrances in eau de toilette. But as I was saying, it's gotten super weak. If you can't find the Profumo, I think the Parfum should do the trick. It's really great. It smells fantastic. I do prefer the Profumo just a little more, but it's a great DNA that Alberto Moria has created. So we're ranking that at number 30 because it was also a flanker. It's not a super duper original DNA that was launched since the 2000s. The original came out in 96. I wore it for the first time in 97. And I have to highlight this DNA here at number 30. Let's move on to number 29. This is Tom Ford's Noir Extreme Parfum. Similar? No. Similar to the Acqua di Gio. This is a flanker of the original Noir, which didn't really have too much of an impact. Then they launched the eau de toilette of the Noir. Tom Ford Noir is what I'm talking about. Then the third flanker was Noir Extreme. I think that did it. People really clicked with this fragrance. I feel like it's one of the most iconic, sweet, kind of designer masculine fragrances that I feel like is also super unisex. But this has had impact for sure. This has had influence because they've continued making flankers, although not as successful as the Noir Extreme. But I feel like also if you want something a bit more potent, you can go with the Parfum edition, which I find to be super duper awesome. But it's a kind of a creamy, vanillic, ambery, warm, spicy with ginger spice and cardamom spice. Both of those spices are more fresh spices to me, not warm. But I like that contrast of the warmth and the freshness. It's a great scent, great DNA. I do prefer the Parfum, but I feel like the Eau de Parfum, the original Noir Extreme, is pretty popular. It was so popular that Tom Ford released the same version, slightly more floral feminine for the ladies. It was called Noir Femme, which that got discontinued, but obviously because I think the ladies just were wearing the original Noir Extreme. Why bother having the one version called Femme when this is pretty unisex to begin with, I think. So that's Noir Extreme from Tom Ford. Again, for me, it's a Noir Extreme Parfum, but that is definitely the fragrance that started it with that collection of flankers within a flanker, because it's the original Noir. By the way, you should also find the Noir, which I do see still selling here and there. It's discontinued. It's a bit more animalic, kind of like a cross between Habit Rouge and Musk Ravageur style. But again, that didn't do very well. So let's move on to the next fragrance, going to the House of Parfums de Marly at number 28. It's Carlisle. So Carlisle, I always say that it's kind of a cross between Herod and Layton. If those two married, this is what it would give birth to. It's sweet, vanillic, spicy, a bit tobacco-ish, and of course, the Herod is a tobacco-focused fragrance, and Layton is more vanilla wood spices. So you pretty much get that. It's ambery, it's woody, it's spicy, it's tobacco-ish. It does remind me a little bit of red tobacco, but this seems a bit more refined. It also reminds me of a Terenzi fragrance, which is also, again, next to the Terenzi, it's super refined because the Terenzi is an extract. Even though this is not an extract, it acts very potent. But I remember when I first got my bottle, it was exclusively selling at Paris boutique and the London boutique. And I really fell in love with it because Herod has always been my favorite from Marly. But I got that similarity here with it. But it's different in the end, and I like that about it. And for a long time, this was all super hype because it was not as easy to get, but people wanted it, and then finally Marly released it as a worldwide release. But again, at the beginning, this was exclusive, a boutique exclusive, and then it took off, and it became very, very famous, and definitely one that got a lot of influence, I think. So that is Carlisle from Marly. Let me know your thoughts on that. Now, this next one, it's got to be on this list. It has to be on this list. When I first was starting YouTube reviews, prior to launching my very first YouTube review in August of 2012, I should say that channel is no longer here, so you can't find that first video. But prior to launching that first video, I was watching videos of other YouTubers, some very minimal amounts of people still here, but most people no longer here. This fragrance would come up so much. This is Encre Noir from Lalique. I think it's a minimalistic, dark, woody, spicy, aromatic masterpiece, I think. It acts, for me, the original does act quite minimalistic. The a la Extreme is a bit more complex, but this has a following. Like, I don't know if it has the same following now, but it had a following back then. And if you're getting into the world of vetiver and you've gotten used to Guerlain's vetiver and you're kind of bored of it, you want something a little different, this is definitely one that you should try. It's definitely a masterpiece, I think. and Nathalie Lorson did a great job. Sure, people think that this does have similarities to Sycamore by Chanel. I can see that. I feel like this is darker, a bit smokier. I feel like the A l'Extrême is a bit closer, because I think the A l'Extrême is not as minimalistic. So it's a bit more complex. There's a bit more happening with it. This is pretty, like minimalistic, linear to me. It's dark woods, aromatic woods, spices, a bit smokiness together in one line. Like there's not a lot of highs and lows for me. But again, I think it's a masterpiece. Definitely deserving of this list, I think. And again, you can get this for around $30. It's so cheap. This is Encre Noir from Lalique. Probably the fragrance I know Lalique for. It's like prior to hearing about, like the first time I heard about Lalique is with Encre Noir. For sure, I knew about Lalique, but I didn't know about their fragrances prior to this. And this is one that really introduced me to a whole slew of awesome fragrances from this house. It's a designer house. All right, up next, going to the house of Bvlgari. This is Man in Black. The only version I currently have is the Parfum, which I feel like is not super Parfum-like. But I remember buying my very first bottle. I think it was around 2014 when I took a trip to Chicago from the Macy's. I think it used to be in Marshall Fields before. I bought a bottle because I felt like it was great. It was woody, it was spicy, and a little smoky. Alberto Moria's once again. A bit tobacco-ish, maybe slight bit booziness. This version is the Parfum, but if you catch my video for this, I do complain that it doesn't act like a Parfum. It's more like an eau de parfum, if that. It's super light, but it does take me back to that first time I started wearing Man in Black and really enjoying and embracing this fragrance. It was kind of like my journey had just started a few years prior, and I was kind of like cross between niche offerings that I'm discovering and super embracing a lot of, designer fragrances that we're launching. It's been around for a long time. I feel like this collection's been around super long and definitely deserves the mention. For me, it's kind of similar. There's a reminder of Spice Bomb, which I consider to be more superior than Man in Black, but there's some similarities there between the fragrances. What do you guys think? Have you discovered the Parfum edition of Man in Black, or do you like the original? Again, I complained about the Parfum. I don't think it acts like a Parfum. It's super light and very close to the skin. I just don't know how they could sell it as a Parfum. But as far as the DNA goes, it totally reminds me of the original fragrance and definitely deserves to be mentioned here. So that's Bvlgari Man in Black. And you can check out the whole entire series or go straight to the Parfum. But just keep in mind, to me, it acts like a cross between an EDT and an EDP. Not super strong. But the next fragrance, going to the house of... whoa, I got these out of order. No, it's correct. This is Prada's Luna Rossa Black. So I'm not the biggest fan of the Luna Rossa line, but I absolutely am head over heels for the Prada Luna Rossa Black. Wait, yeah. To me, it doesn't act the same as the original Luna Rossa is what I'm trying to say. It's a complete different smell. For me, this does act a bit like... What does it act like? Midnight in Paris a little bit from Van Cleef & Arpels. A little bit of Bvlgari Black, that rubber, round, flat, stubby bottle. Both discontinued. This does act like it to me, but it's a different fragrance. This is a lot drier. It's not... I don't think it has tea. I think a prominent note is Angelica. I also find this DNA to be super sexy. And it also keeps the Prada powdery DNA. Like there's a lot of powdery fragrances in the Prada line, except for that new Prada men's fragrance. What is it called? The Dud, the Complete Dud. This is, like I said, super sexy, super powdery, musky, and a bit vegetal. That Angelica note has that vegetal quality. slightly soapy behind the scenes as well. And there is a faint reminder of Bvlgari Black, more Bvlgari Black than the Midnight in Paris, but there's a faint reminder of those two fragrances here, which is great because I enjoyed both of those fragrances quite a bit, and both of them are discontinued. But really awesome scent that I have to highlight here. This is Luna Rossa Black from Prada. The problem is they don't list the name of the actual fragrance. They just wrote black on it. So you've got to know what this is. It's not called black. And again, I was also just talking about Man in Black. And I'll also mention the Bvlgari Black, which is not the same as Man in Black. So it's getting a little confusing. Bvlgari Black was this round fragrance that's short, and it came with a rubber around it. Kind of like this. There's kind of like a rubbery effect right here. That's what it reminds me of. So let's move on to number 24 with Valentino Uomo. So I have both the Puig version and also the L'Oreal version. Right now I'm highlighting the L'Oreal version. I prefer the Puig version a bit more. And what am I talking about when I mention Puig and L'Oreal? So Valentino was distributed by Puig, and I think the same time they were also distributing Prada. So Puig dumped Valentino and Prada, L'Oreal took it. And so the L'Oreal version is not as good. If you can get the Puig version, it's such an awesome scent. It's kind of a slightly chocolatey, nutty, almost to like a Nutella-like powdery iris thing. Definitely the L'Oreal version, they've amped up the woods more. And it kind of gives me a little bit of the more of a walnut nuttiness rather than like Nutella, chocolatey, hazelnutty. But I feel like the DNA is kind of there. It's just, changed a bit, which annoys me because I think Puig was doing great work with Valentino and the flankers, because this came in the black bottle. They also had one that was the Noir Absolute, which was completely different compared to these. And then you find out that they've dumped these brands and L'Oreal has, taken them, which is what's happening quite a bit now. They did that with Prada and Valentino. Then Clarins Group dumped Azzaro and Mugler, and L'Oreal snatched it up. And now Kering Group, which recently purchased Creed, they're having problems. And of course, some of their beauty brands fashion houses like Bottega Veneta, Gucci, YSL, some of their beauty brands for those fashion houses are with L'Oreal and some are with Coty. Like Bottega Veneta, I believe Kering took, and they started releasing new fragrances under Kering, but I think Kering is going through a lot of challenges. So basically, L'Oreal, take these brands. So L'Oreal took them over. So also Balenciaga, because they just launched this new luxury collection from Balenciaga. So yeah, I guess L'Oreal's there just to acquire every single beauty brand. But there's a lot of detail here, but again, I like this DNA. I prefer the Puig version, but the L'Oreal does remind me of it. It is changed up a bit. I remember the very first time I bought my bottle at Nordstrom of the Valentino Uomo, and it was just around the time that I was really getting into the Dior Homme line, and this did remind me of that line, but it was twisted, it was different, and still it was sexy. And it was around the time when there's a lot of brands launching similar kind of fragrances, because we also had Prada L'Homme, which was taking that iris thing into more of an aromatic direction, which I'll get to here in a little bit. But moving on from Valentino Uomo, it's Prada Amber Pour Homme. Got to have this on this list as well. This is, once again, Prada is known for powdery. They have a powdery DNA. All three of the the designer fragrances here from Prada for the guys are powdery, including the Luna Rossa Black, which has the Angelica. We've got Amber Pour Homme, which has citrus floral notes and is also super soapy powdery. Oh, I love that smell. It's clean and super soapy. Like literally, it's like powdery soap. When you open up a kind of a gift box of luxurious soap, not the ones you buy at the, supermarket, the ones that you buy that are like maybe tens of dollars, and you open that up and you could smell that soap. That's what this smells like. It smells literally like clean, powdery soap. I mean, it's got aromatic notes. It's ambery as well, but it's super orange blossomy, neroli, kind of soapy. Great scent. That's Amber Pour Homme. Yeah, I think this collection was super popular around the time I was starting to do YouTube videos. And I think when I started doing the YouTube videos, the dark bottle version of this had just launched. I ended up buying a bottle. I sadly do not have a backup of that, which they took this fragrance, the Prada Amber Pour Homme, into a darker, kind of more earthy patchouli direction, and I felt like they amped up the myrrh. And I think this also has myrrh in the notes, so it's not as resinous as the dark version. So it's got some flankers, but I feel like quickly they launched a new collection with the L'Homme, which is this is the next fragrance. This is Prada L'Homme, the original in eau de toilette. This also kind of reminded me of a fragrance that was sort of inspired by the DNA of Dior Homme. This is also iris, but it's also kind of aromatic, lavendery. So it's keeping that soapiness just like the Amber Pour Homme, but a bit more like Dior Homme rather than super luxurious soapy with the Amber Pour Homme. It's clean. It's a perfect scent, and the darker version, the EDP, just intensifies the iris, kind of takes it into more like a Dior Homme intense direction. So I feel like Prada was doing some stuff, maybe tapping into the success with Dior's Dior Homme line of fragrances. Which do you guys like better? This Prada L'Homme, there's a certain metallicness, sharpness to my nose that I don't get with the Dior Homme line, I should say. And I think it's caused by the lavender that's in here. And it's a matter of taste. Do you like lavender more, or do you like whatever is in the Dior Homme line, the ambrette and, maybe leather with the Dior Homme Parfum and things like that? But it's good. It's almost like, to me, it's like an offspring of the Amber Pour Homme. And I also feel like Amber Pour Homme is a bit misnamed here. Isn't it? It's not super ambery to me, but I feel like the Prada L'Homme is the evolution of Amber Pour Homme to me, because it's both clean. Both of them are super clean and soapy. Anyway, I feel like it's definitely got to be mentioned. And I just remember the name of the other Prada, Paradigm. Is it called Paradigm? What a dud. That one's a super duper dud for me. All right, at number 21, we're going to the house of Guerlain with L'Homme Idéal, and I'm featuring the EDP here. But it was the early 2010s when the original in eau de toilette launched. And instantly they launched the cologne, which is a great scent. It sadly got discontinued. And then they went with the eau de parfum. And the eau de parfum, I think, gets a bit leathery, but it's keeping the nuttiness, and it adds a certain cherry liqueur slight touch here as well. And it's definitely a distinctive almond vanilla masculine offering from Guerlain. Simply keeping ingredients that Guerlain's known for, vanilla. I think there's some tonka here, but it's certainly almondy, sweet, vanillic, powdery, and also, boozy, fruity. Very modern scent, I think, scent profile. I think their fragrances, Habit Rouge, Vetiver, some of those fragrances have gotten a bit too mature for younger noses. And if you're looking for something more modern, this is it. And they just launched the Parfum edition of this as well. It really amplifies the booziness. So I think it's a solid collection. It's not one of my all-time favorite collections from Guerlain, but I think it has a, influence here where they keep cranking out flankers of the series. So that's L'Homme Idéal in the Eau de Parfum edition from the House of Guerlain. Then we're going to the House of, that's at number 21, and I think that's correct, right? Yeah, that's at number 21. And then at number 20, we're going to the House of Paco Rabanne with 1 million. And the only version I have is the Elixir and the Parfum, so I'm going to talk about it here in the Parfum edition. And I remember this launching around 2006, the original. And I think that year there were some pretty big launches for men's designer fragrances. There was Terre de Hermes, which I have here. There was YSL L'Homme, which I don't have here. And this was also launching, and taking a visit to France for the first time in Paris, the department stores were really pushing this launch, the Paco Rabanne 1 million. To me, it's super duper sweet, sticky, and it's got a very mass DNA, but I think it's had major influence and impact. So many flankers, so much. And this is also under Puig, the distributor, the Spanish conglomerate. So I wonder why they decided to dump Prada and Valentino. And, of course, they have Paco Rabanne, they have Jean-Paul Gaultier. Who else do they have as far as mass designers go? I can't remember right now. I know they have Comme des Garçons, Dries Van Noten, they have Christian Louboutin, but I was talking about more like these kind of mass designer fragrances. Of course, Jean-Paul Gaultier and Paco Rabanne. And sadly, I don't have Jean-Paul Gaultier listed here. No, maybe I do. I don't have the fragrance selected. No, I don't have Jean-Paul Gaultier because I wanted to feature the Elixir. I don't have that here, unfortunately, because it came out rather recently. And I didn't consider their scandal to be anything super influential. But again, this to me, I think what 1 million is known for is clubbing fragrance. It's very long lasting. It's super duper beastly. It's spicy, sweet, ambery, woody, but also it's one of those fragrances that's super loud. It'll stick on you and, just be with you for a long time. Very long lasting is what I'm trying to say. And because of that, I think definitely people love wearing it to go out and party and club. It's also kind of bubblegummy sweet for me. I don't know if you guys get that. Anyway, that is 1 million. Definitely something that has had a lot of impact as far as men's designer fragrances go. It's not one of my all-time DNAs. I did a lot of research to put this together. I wanted to make sure the fragrances have had, cultural impact. They have the influence and the longevity. And I determined that with all the flankers and things like that. And then going to the next fragrance, going to the House of Dolce & Gabbana. It's the one in Eau de Parfum, but I don't have a current bottle of the Eau de Parfum. So I'm going to throw in the Pour Homme Parfum. But, they have so many flankers. And I've done videos on the flankers as well. The Middle Eastern flankers, there's a lot of. And the Parfum came out recently. It's pretty decent, I think. I much like it more than the original, the one. I prefer the Middle Eastern ones more than the original Eau de Parfum. I never really cared for the original EDT. But it's kind of like a smoky, not smoky as much, just tobacco-ish, tobacco amber kind of thing. It's definitely intensified here. And I think the perfumer is a different perfumer for this versus the original collection. Although I feel like the original collection and all its flankers, they never publicized the perfumer unless I missed it. But for the first time, they're publicizing the perfumer, and it's Jean-Christophe Herold who did Aventus, which I have here. I'll talk about it soon. But it's a tobacco that's spicy. It's warm, very tobacco-ish. Like I said, there's a lot of amber here, and the collection has a stickiness. Like when you smell it, you've got that ambery kind of resinous stickiness that it's known for. For me, to my nose, it smells sticky. Like it smells like it's gonna stick to you, kind of like a resin or whatever, like honey or something. But what do you guys think? Do you like this collection? I think it's definitely something people talk a lot about. And what are your thoughts on the new Parfum edition? See on the back, black pepper, labdanum, tobacco. So black pepper, I said spicy. Labdanum, a resin, it's very sticky. And of course the tobacco, which is here. Does it smell smoky? Not as much smoky like other smoky fragrances. It's more like leafy, woody to me, the tobacco. Then we've got at number 18, Viktor & Rolf's Spice Bomb. I actually added the extreme version. I know when I was speaking about the original for a long time, many people kept saying, you have to get the extreme, you have to get the extreme. I now have the extreme. And yeah, I think it's definitely a super duper popular fragrance for the guys. And it's interesting how Viktor & Rolf launched Antidote before they launched Spice Bomb, and Antidote was a flop, I believe. It's a great fougere, but it was a flop, and it's a given that Spice Bomb has been the popular offering for the guys. That's why they've made so many flankers. The Extreme is definitely really awesome. I really love it, and I like that. It's peppery spicy. It's warm spicy with like cinnamony notes. It does have tobacco, amber. It's a very long-lasting fragrance. It's powdery too. It's almost like taking tobacco vanille, because it's also got vanillic ambery touches here. It doesn't smell like tobacco vanille, but I think because also this is got a lot of peppery notes, so that changed the smell profile, because tobacco vanille doesn't have a lot of peppery notes to me. It's got warm spices, but it's a solid offering. I think I can see why people love it. It's kind of similarly loud like the 1 million. And it's also kind of winter appropriate because it's got all those warm spices, slightly holiday, holiday vibe. But it's a very influential offering because they've made so many flankers. I'm looking at the collection across from me. So I like the original. I like the extreme. I like the leather a little bit, but I also like that metallic musk they came out with. What do you guys think? Do you like the metallic musk? I think they're prime for a parfum or an elixir. Like, they can intensify this and make it a bit stickier, because I think the fragrance itself is pretty dry. What do you guys think? Let me know if you're a fan. Viktor & Rolf, Spice Bomb, Extreme. All right, next going to the house of YSL. This is La Nuit de l'Homme. So I didn't feature La Nuit, which, as I mentioned earlier, launched in 2006. In addition to the 1 million, I saw a lot of displays, and when you go to a department store and there's a new launch, they set up all kinds of displays and advertisements and promotional materials. So I saw it for La Nuit, the original, but I didn't care for the La Nuit original. I much prefer the La Nuit de l'Homme. And what I like about this is the cardamom. The cardamom is super, super awesome. I think I was mentioning in another video, this fragrance would layer really well with something like Smoke by Acqua. Because the way the fragrance is super light and thin. It doesn't have that density that might, screw up layering. Same thing with Acqua's Smoke. I think these two would be a great combo. Or anything that you think would complement cardamom, because this is very prominent with the cardamom. It's sexy. I think it's a fragrance that's used a lot for date night. It has depth, but it's not super dense. It's super fresh. I like the way it smells. I don't think it's a groundbreaker or anything like that, but as a men's designer offering, it's pretty solid as a smell, as far as smell goes. Performance might be not the best, but is it an eau de parfum? I think it's an eau de toilette. Yeah, it's an eau de toilette. But there's countless flankers of this. This was eventually, well, this was a flanker of La Nuit. I believe this is La Nuit de l'Homme. And then this took off on its own. La Nuit came out, you know, they came out with a lot of flankers of La Nuit, and they came out with a lot of flankers of La Nuit de l'Homme. Between the two, like I said, I prefer this collection over the other. So it's definitely something that was very popular for the house of YSL. And, you know, it's still here. The Blue Electric was the recent flanker from this. I think that version is probably discontinued, or it was a limited run. I don't think it was ever launched here. I brought a couple of bottles back with me from Europe, one for a friend or something. I can't remember what the deal was. And I did notice that it was a bit more intense compared to this. It's a Dominique Ropillon creation. So that's La Nuit de l'Homme from the house of YSL. We're moving on to the house of Chanel with Allure Homme Sport Eau Extrême. Yeah, it took me a while to embrace this one. I really do enjoy it. And this is like similar to the Acqua di Gio by Armani and the Noir Extreme by Tom Ford. The original of this came out in like 97 or 98, the original Allure Homme. And this version is so different than the original, I think, that deserves to be mentioned here. It's taking the original Allure into a marine direction that's also super spicy and definitely very marine. But as I said, this took me a while to embrace, but I really enjoyed it, and it smells great in the heat as well. It's not, oh, I guess it is an eau de parfum, because earlier on in my journey, these were, they had called them something like eau de toilette intense, or they reformulated them, or they just changed the name. I think they used the word concentrate a lot here at Chanel. Then they changed it to like an eau de parfum, because originally it was eau de toilette intense or something like that. But yeah, it is eau de parfum, and it's a marine take on a sweet, spicy tonka nuttiness. Who's a fan of the original Allure? I think the original Allure is probably, Allure Pour Homme is what I'm talking about, probably gotten pretty thin. I quite like this one a lot. I started out with the Edition Blanche, but I feel like this one is a bit more influential, popular. So that's Chanel's Allure Homme Sport Eau Extrême. Then we're going to the house of Bvlgari. It's Tygar. Yes, unbelievable influence with this one. It was so influential that they finally launched the flanker of this, but I much prefer the original, guys. Much prefer the original. I don't know. The amber just didn't mesh. Kind of smoky, resinous amber didn't mesh with this fresh, zingy, spicy, gingery grapefruit and, you know, the ambroxany thing that's going on here, the woods. It just didn't mesh very well, but some people might like it. But this fragrance is super sexy, I think. It's perfect in extreme heat. I think those are the kind of situations I would leave it for, because it is kind of light, but it's inspired so many other fragrances. So many, like dupes and clones and inspired fragrances. It's a great DNA created by Jacques Cavalier of Louis Vuitton fragrances. But Bvlgari is also under LVMH, which Louis Vuitton, Moet, and Hennessy is, you know, Louis Vuitton fragrances as well. But he does fragrances for Bvlgari and also all the fragrances for Louis Vuitton. But great scent, definitely deserves to be on this list. Check it out if you don't know it. I highly recommend it. One of my favorite DNAs, I absolutely love it. But it was a bit late start for me. But going to the house of Louis Vuitton next at number 14, same perfumer, Imagination. Oh man, this one is I think it came out around 2021, but I had to add this to the list because I was kind of capping off my list like 2018, 2020. I felt like adding this to the list because it's had such an impact. I first thought it was a dud, and I'm being upfront about it. I thought it was a dud. It was not anything to write home about. I felt like it was just a dud, but I bought a bottle, I reviewed it, and then it grew on me. And then I realized, basically, Jacques Cavalier has perfected his this fragrance right here, L'Odyssée pour Homme, because he did that. And that came out in the mid-90s. And this is, the early 2020s. It's perfected it and modernized. It's, once again, kind of watery, aquatic. Well, actually, I take it back. It's not this. It's similar to the Bvlgari fragrances he created with the tea, Bvlgari pour Homme. I think that's what it's reminding me a little bit. But it's still kind of aquatic, watery, which does remind me a little bit of the L'Odyssée pour Homme. But it's grown on me quite a bit, and it's just become such a popular offering for the guys. And it's definitely worth mentioning here. I also find that DNA super sexy. I don't know what he's put in there. And again, similar to Tygar, save it for the hottest days if you want this thing to shine. It smells great in the heat. Really does. Or it can be an everyday signature scent, You can wear it every day over and over again because you'll smell really, really great. But I feel like it'll shine the most in the heat. All right, let's move on to Tom Ford once again. It's Ombre leather. So originally I put Tuscan leather. Then I thought, no, Ombre leather has got to be on this, It's got to be Ombre leather. And yes, it's a unisex targeted offering. But to me, it's a leather. It leans masculine, so we can't leave this one off. And Tuscan leather was very popular when I first got on the scene. It was super duper popular. But in 2016, Tom Ford launched Ombre Leather 16. It was a private blend collection, very limited, came and went and run out. And then, from the grapevine, we heard that they're launching that same fragrance as part of the signature line. And this has been quite a success. It's kind of a suede leather that I find super sexy. It's got some violet-y touches, but I think a very modern take on leather. Not animalic or anything like that. I don't think there's that here. But definitely, this is the fragrance that defined the modern trend in leather fragrances. I wouldn't call it niche perfumery here, but it's a designer, obviously. But I think definitely a designer making niche style offerings, especially early on with Tom Ford. But it's a great scent, great DNA. That's Tom Ford's Ombre Leather. So that is the original Ombre Leather. Next, going to the house of Amouage, we've got Reflection Man. Oh man, this one also has major impact. Super duper influence. My very first Amouage was Lyric Man, then it was Reflection Man. So Reflection Man also reminds me like a little bit of Le Male. It's like almost like a cross between Le Male and Fleur de Mal. You guys know Fleur de Mal? I am looking for a bottle of that fragrance. It's been discontinued, sadly. I think it was a sort of a flanker of Le Male. Came out in 2006. It was taking Orange Blossom into a super duper powdery direction. It came in an all white, similar bottle to the Le Male collection. So this reminds me a little bit of that because it does have the Orange Blossom and Le Male was that. I'm sorry, Fleur de Mal was like that. But this also has jasmine, but the powdery touches is what kind of does that for me. It reminds me of that experience with Fleur de Mal. Not identical smell. It reminds me of it a little bit, but not identical. But very influential fragrance, I think. It's had a major impact. It's popular enough that Amouage has created a flanker of this. It's keeping the DNA, but it's very resinous and ambery in comparison to the original. But definitely something worth checking out if you don't know it, as it's had major influence. So that's Reflection Man. And my little thing at the front there, the cap thingy, has fallen off, so I taped it, sadly. But my bottle is fairly old. It still smells awesome. It really does. It's not the magnetic cap. It's one that has to be clicked on. So that's how I can tell it's an older bottle. This, on the other hand, is a magnetic cap. This is Interlude Man, which is what I'm going to next, also from the house of Amouage. This is like the ultimate in the incense amber powerhouse fragrance. This is super dark, smoky, very resinous, bit leathery, oudy, not too much leather, a bit. And what's unique about this one is the oregano. Now, oregano in a fragrance, you're thinking, wow, that's going to smell strong. Is it going to smell like pizza or Italian food? That's what makes this fragrance so special. The oregano. It's also so intense. You can literally smell the oils. It's that thick and dense. I mean, I think before Guidance, this fragrance was the most popular Amouage, I believe. Interlude Man was the most popular Amouage. So they launched the Black Iris edition, and then they launched the Extract edition. So what does that tell you? It's a very popular fragrance. And now there's a lot of fragrances that have the Extract edition. So that means basically most brands make extracts or flankers of fragrances because they are very popular. At least most do, not everyone probably. But yeah, this is a bit more of a daring fragrance, but it's had a huge influence. I think that's why I'm featuring it here. That is Interlude Man from the house of Amouage. All right, we are into the top 10 now. Going to the house of Xerjoff, it's Naxos. So yes, we do have some unisex offerings, but as I always say, there's no gender behind fragrance. Wear what you like when you like. For me, this is not only one of the most popular Xerjoff fragrances, it's one of the most that has had a lot of influence. When I was first getting into the world of fragrances, there was the fragrance Pure Havane from Mugler. I find these two a bit similar. Pure Havane was tobacco and honey. There was that cherry tonka thing happening in there. This, on the other hand, reminded me of that, but this also has more things happening. It has the lavender, and it has, if I didn't mention, the Pure Havane also had the tobacco. This also has the tobacco, but it also has lavender. To me, this takes the fragrance into a fougere, an amber fougere direction a little bit. Because you've got that aromatic touch of the lavender and the fact that it has the tonka in the base. So it acts like that a little bit, but still honeyed, spicy, tobacco. It's a great scent. It's probably one of the most celebrated tobacco fragrances in the world of niche perfumery. And I've mentioned this before. I do sniff sessions here in the studio, consultations, not like a business or anything. Once in a blue moon, somebody contacts me. I should say not like a full-time business. And 9 out of 10 times, people come in and they want to smell this because they haven't smelled it. It's not easy to find. Although lately it's been getting easier to find. And a lot of like department stores are carrying Xerjoff now. But at one time it was like asked a lot. Can I smell Naxos, please? That's one of the ones people wanted to smell a lot. So next at number 9, we're going to the house of Raja Parfums. It's Elysium Pour Homme. So who's a fan of Elysium Pour Homme? This came out, I think, around the same time or around then to when the blue genre of fragrances were really kicking off. I know it was started off with Bleu de Chanel, but it didn't really take off until like 2015 when Sauvage launched. So this kind of like got caught up in that wave of blue fragrances. I think personally, it's kind of like a cross between Sauvage and Aventus to me. There's a bit of fruitiness in there. It's aromatic, it's citrusy, but more on the luxury side of, experiences rather than sticking with the designers like Sauvage and Bleu de Chanel and anything else that's kind of similar. I think it smells great. It's not one of my all-time favorite styles of fragrances. You guys know what my tastes are. I do videos sometimes not because of my favorite fragrances. I'm, getting into ranking of what's popular and things like that, which is what I'm doing here. But it's a true blue fragrance, though. It's clean, it's crisp, citrusy, aromatic, bit fruity, woody. It's a blue fragrance, true blue, Elysium. Let me know if you're a fan. I know they've had flankers of that fragrance. In fact, they also have it in the original Raja bottles. I think it's the Parfum edition. This does say... doesn't really say the concentration, but I think the other fragrances in this collection are known as Parfum Cologne. So they're not necessarily super strong. So that's Raja Parfums Elysium pour Homme. Up next, going to the house of Nishane, it's Hacivat. And I enjoy Hacivat more than Elysium. Hacivat to me is super duper intense, long lasting. But it is also more in line with smelling like Aventus. It's also really screechy, mossy, and earthy patchouli. But it's got that pineapple, it's got citruses, and it's very, very long lasting. It's really crisp, really intensely crisp. So I think save it for hot days. It cools you off. The crispness has that metallic edge. It's definitely an awesome scent. And I also like to do layering with that one. That the fragrance has got great sillage. That's what is cool about it. So it gives you that whole sexy edge. But it's a huge fragrance. Major, major influence and impact. Nishane's Hacivat is at number 8. Then we've got a fragrance from the house of Marly, Parfums of Marly. It's Layton. Remember I said earlier, taking Herod and marrying it with Layton, you get Carlisle. Yeah, I think I get those similarities quite a bit. But Layton, on the other hand, it's a fresher, not as warm as Carlisle. Because I think it has cardamom, it has vanillic notes, it has a lot of woods. One of the most successful, hyped niche fragrances, I think, from this house. And the other thing is, it's Marly, and I thought Marly would have this is pretty successful, but I think Marly's most successful fragrance is Delina. But I can see that this is probably number 2 most successful. It's successful enough to release a flanker of it, if that makes sense. But also I should say Marly's sister brand is Initio. Do you guys get similarities of this with Rehab? What do you guys think? Because I think this has a little bit of aromatic lavender in it. Do you guys get that similarity? But I think Layton is definitely deserving to be here, and one of the most influential, I think, here for the guys since 2000. And up next, going to the house of Tom Ford, it's Oud Wood. Oud Wood, guys, very, very popular. It's a unisex offering, but it does lean masculine. It's kind of it's not super duper warm for me. So I feel like there's fresh notes in here. And I'm not saying it's a freshie because there's deeper notes, but it's a fresh spice cardamom. There's woods in here and that oud accord that's in here also. You know, masculine take on an oud accord, I should say. There might be some earthy patchouli in the base. It's not very intense, so it makes it for easier to wear, but you've got a nice, pleasant fragrance here that's definitely very iconic. I think the early Tom Ford fragrances have, you know, had the longevity of surviving. They launched with Oud Wood, Tobacco Vanille, Noir de Noir, Tuscan Leather. Those fragrances are still selling today. And probably the most iconic Tom Ford fragrances. That's why they have that longevity. They were really great original offerings. And I think Tom Ford was copied quite a bit, or, you know, duped and influenced or inspired by, because I've seen or smelled fragrances that come close to, you know, these 4 fragrances that Tom Ford launched, I think around 2007. Anyway, Oud Wood, awesome scent. Check it out. Major influence. Next, go into the house of Dior. It's Dior Homme Intense. This is the latest edition of Dior Homme Intense. I did a video on this one recently. Yeah, I think it's almost exactly identical, if not identical, but I think people are complaining about the performance on this. But to me, started out with Dior Homme in 2006, and then they launched the original Dior Homme Intense in 2007. Are those the correct dates? I forget dates sometimes. And then they brought it back early 2010s with the Dior Homme, and then they redid Dior Homme Intense in 2013. And I discovered Dior Homme Intense in 2014 for the first time. And I've been hooked with this DNA since then. I can't list Dior Homme Parfum here. Sadly, I can't, because it's no longer, I mean, it is still selling, but it's not the same fragrance. But man, I love the iris combo here. It's a landmark fragrance. Very influential. I mean, we had all these powdery offerings like L'Homme, Uomo. I'm sure they were inspired by Dior Homme. Oh God, I love that smell. This smell is so awesome. So wait a minute. Is this how it's supposed to be? Yeah. So that's how it's supposed to be. You've got the Intense written down there, and then you've got the Dior Homme. Before, it used to say Dior Homme Intense on top, I believe. Go catch my video about this. I really love the DNA. I'm glad they didn't change the smell of the Dior Homme Intense. But man, Dior has made it so confusing with this whole collection. Dior Homme Original. Dior Homme 2020, completely different smell. Dior Homme Intense, they kept it the same. Dior Homme Parfum, complete new scent profile. It's really, really confusing, Dior. Stick with one fragrance, and if you're going to change it, call it something else. Don't call it the same thing. I'm so confused. I'm sure you guys are too. But gotta have Dior Homme Intense here. All right, number 4, it's Terre de Hermès. And right now, I've pulled the Parfum edition, but the original I wore when it first launched. And I always mention this. I read an article in a magazine called Destinations. I read a small, tiny little snippet write-up about how Jean-Claude Elaine created this. And I went to Nordstrom's and bought a bottle of 50 ml, which I took to my trip in 2006. And that's when I discovered L'Homme in the stores, and also 1 million. But for me, this profile is a masterpiece, I think, that Jean-Claude Elaine created. It's woody, spicy, minerally, citrusy, peppery, earthy, great smell. It's got the orangey grapefruit thing up top, the peppery thing, the earthy, woody, minerally thing. It smells great. Really, really great. I kind of got bored of it for a while, but I've come back to it, and I think it's a very influential fragrance. It's got great longevity because they keep making flankers of it, and it had major impact. Jean-Claude Elena was working as in-house perfumer at Hermes, and he crafted that. He also did the Parfum, and then he did another fragrance that's kind of similar to Bigara Concentrate from Frederic Malle, and I forgot the name of that. I think it was called Autre Fresh. And then they discontinued that because there was an ingredient that got banned like 4 or 5 years ago. And then they came out with the Eau Givre, but Jean-Claude Elena wasn't working at Hermes anymore. And Eau Givre I do enjoy quite a bit, but it's created by Christine Nagel or Nagel. But the new Terre de Hermes flanker with the coffee, I don't care for that at all. Not at all. All right, next, number 3, Dior Sauvage. So Dior recycles Eau Sauvage and calls it Sauvage. I mean, they've been recycling their names quite a bit. This also launched around the same time as Baccarat Rouge. And I was going to put Baccarat Rouge on this list. I decided to leave it off. I have enough niche fragrances here. But Sauvage is kind of like an aromatic lavender forward ambroxan bomb. And I think this is the reason why it's, categorized as a blue fragrance, because I think it's the lavender, the kind of notes. I wouldn't necessarily call it maybe it's classified as a very modern fougere. But it's spicy, it's aromatic, it's very fresh. And, it's got that ambroxan's metallic edge to it. Spicy, ambery, woody, a little bit aquatic marine thing, musky. I think also this fragrance has a great performance in the heat. But I feel like it's a great dumb reach fragrance. You smell great wearing it. And I think it's a crowd pleaser. It garners compliments. And popular enough that they've created multiple flankers of it. Although the last flanker they did, the Francis did, the alcohol-free fragrance, I think is a dud. I don't care for it. It smells like a herb farm or herb market. It smells like an herb market to me. But I think the rest of the collection I do enjoy. It's not one of my all-time favorite collections, but if I wasn't into this hobby, I would probably wear something like this because, I wouldn't know about fragrances and I would probably think this smells great, Anyway, that is Dior Sauvage in the Eau de Toilette version, but I can also add the EDP and the Parfum and the Elixir here. But the original is what started the collection and the popularity. I think also, since we're focusing on impact, longevity, and influence here, I'm doing this at number 3, but I think it was probably with sales, it would be number 1 personally. But I'm going with number 2 with Bleu de Chanel in the Eau de Parfum. I think if it wasn't for this, maybe the blue movement wouldn't have happened. What do you guys think? I think this is the very first blue fragrance. Came out in 2010, right? It's citrusy, a little smoky, but also very fresh and woody. It's the ultimate in modern blue fragrance. I actually prefer the Sauvage more than the Bleu de Chanel. And maybe Sauvage got me to appreciate Bleu de Chanel. But when I first got on the scene, Bleu de Chanel had already launched. I wasn't wearing Bleu de Chanel. I felt like it was kind of a boring offering. But sometimes you wear boring fragrances. Which do you guys prefer, the Sauvage collection or the Bleu de Chanel collection? Again, I said my favorite collection between the two is the Sauvage collection. I was more of a Dior person. But anyway, some people prefer one or the other. I think they're kind of similar, But if it wasn't for Sauvage, I wouldn't appreciate Bleu de Chanel. But I feel like Bleu de Chanel has had more impact and more influence. And it's been around longer, so it's got great longevity. And then at number 1, Aventus. This is still my bottle of 120 ml Aventus. For so long, every time I'd go into Neiman's, I would ask them, what's the biggest best-selling fragrance here? Aventus. We sell a lot of Aventus. Aventus. This is created by Jean-Christophe Herold, who did the new Dolce & Gabbana, the one Parfum. I think under the training of Pierre Bourdon is how Jean-Christophe Herold, I think that's what I've read. Same thing with Julien Rascanet, who also trained under Pierre Bourdon, I believe. He did Royal Oud, which I much prefer over Aventus, but I don't think it has had the influence or the impact as Aventus has had. Aventus also has a lot of flankers. Royal Oud doesn't. But I kind of like the profile of Royal Oud much more than Aventus. So once again, it's considered a modern chypre like Nishane's Hacivat. And if you don't know what a chypre is, it's a style of fragrance. It's mossy. You've got oak moss in the base. And you're supposed to have a lot of bergamot up top and labdanum in the heart. Lately, a lot of patchouli gets added. So there's patchouli here as well. It's a fruity, modern fruity chypre because you've got the pineapple in this. I think it's a great DNA. I love the smell of it, but I don't consider it one of the best fragrances, but major impact and influence, I think. I mean, early on, I did a video probably on the previous channel, like early on, like 2014, called Aventus Killers. And it was all of the different inspired, influenced, duped fragrances. This was on the previous channel. And earlier on, at that point, there were fragrances that were inspired by Aventus. So it's got major influence. And I think it's Creed's pride and joy. I think without this fragrance, probably Kering wouldn't have paid almost $4 billion to acquire Creed. Is that how much they paid? It was like 3.7 or 3.6 billion. Is that correct? Anyway, if you guys don't know much about Creed's history, go watch a video on my channel with Gabe Oppenheim. And it's a video that I did with him, who wrote a book called The Ghost Perfumer. And you'll hear a lot of stories about Creed. Anyway, that's the list, guys. Top 30 modern classics for men. What do you guys think? What's missing? There might have been some fragrances I left off. I don't have any Versace Eros. I think would have been added to the list. Maybe there's a few others that I didn't have. But I think it's a pretty decent list of very popular and very influential men's fragrances. But you guys let me know. Add a comment below. And this isn't a ranking of what I like. I just ranked this the way I think the fragrances have had the most impact and the most influence. So maybe you think of the fragrances having a different impact and influence. Maybe Aventus is not as impactful or as influential as maybe Bleu de Chanel or Sauvage. So let me know how you would do the list. But I think I did it pretty decently. But let me know, add a comment below. And thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, list below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Please click this subscribe button and also the bell icon so you'll be notified for future videos. And please give a thumbs up for this video. That helps with the algorithm and it'll make the video reach a wider audience. Last but not least, please don't forget to subscribe to my shorts channel. I have it linked in the info box. And stay tuned for another video very soon. Have a good one. Bye-bye.